Cobra's new King F6 range of drivers takes the adjustability that featured in the Fly Z models and really develops upon it to help golfers achieve more distance through more optimal launch. Now, the King F6 driver is more of the all-ability driver aimed at a broader spectrum of players. It features a similar concept to the flip zone weighting we saw in the Fly Z driver. So we have a 10 gram weight here, which is signalled by this orange weight, and then a 3 gram weight. So depending on your preference, if you want to move the weight back in the head, it's going to make the driver more forgiving. It's also going to increase spin and launch angle. But a third option that you can now do is actually take this weight out, and that's your third setting, which is just going to help maximise the impact of this heavier weight to improve the performance of your driver. It has the technology we've seen in previous Cobra drivers, so the smart pad on the sole, that's going to help the face angle stay nice and square depending on the loft setting that you choose. Moving on to the loft settings, we have the MyFly options here, so lots of different lofts via the hosel and also some draw settings as well. But the other interesting thing about this driver is the speed channel, so it's basically a trench around the perimeter of the face, makes it thinner in certain areas, away from the sweet spot. It's going to help you maintain more ball speed on off-centre hits. And the second driver in Cobra's new King F6 range is the F6 Plus model, which I've got here. Now, this is much more of an innovation story, a drastic change from the models we saw in the Fly Z range. You remember the Fly Z Plus driver had the flip zone weighting, and the structure that held that weight in place was made of titanium. But this new carbon track here we see on the sole is made of carbon fibre, which is a lot lighter. It's allowed Cobra to save a lot of weight and implement this 18 gram sliding weight. Now, there are 5 positions, so you can slide this weight up and down the sole structure here, ranging from a penetrating flight, you can see it written on the sole here, to mid, all the way back to towering flight. There's actually 9 different positions you can position that weight if you include the notches in between the 5 positions. Cobra have saved a lot of weight in the crown. This is a slightly different crown, more expensive crown than the F6 driver. So this is made of carbon fibre. That's going to help save weight and move the CG really low. And this is in fact one of the lowest CG drivers on the market. We've got some 3 draw settings in here, as well as the speed channel around the perimeter of the face. Interestingly, this also comes in the F6 Plus Pro head as well, which basically is the same head, but gives you some lower loft options, also some fade angle settings instead of draw, so better players that tend to turn the ball over. You've got some fade settings there as well as a flatter lie angle, which should help also increase the fade bias. Another interesting thing about this carbon track is the fact that it's angled slightly towards the toe. So there's 2 reasons for that. Firstly, it's allowed Cobra to make it as long as possible, but because it's angled slightly this way, when you have the weight forward, which is the preferred position for better players that want low spin on their driver, actually positions the weight slightly more towards the toe. So another thing better players like is a little bit more fade bias in their driver. So having that toe, the weight towards the toe is going to increase the fade bias and hopefully get a stronger flight for those better players. Now, these drivers come in 3 different colours. We've got the black, the blue and the white, which you can see here. This is the F6 Plus, which comes in at £299. The F6 comes in at £249. I've got my SkyTrack launch monitor here today, so we're going to have a hit with it. So the first setting I tested was with the sliding weight on the F6 Plus driver positioned towards the back of the head. Looking at, in terms of the spin, averaging around about the 2,300 mark, which for this model, which is said to be one of the lowest spinning, the lowest CG drivers on the market, that's pretty high for this type of configuration in terms of clubhead design. Certainly had some good distance numbers, averaging around 250, 251, totaling around the 268 mark. So very impressed with the numbers with the weight back, and obviously with that setting, it's also a very forgiving driver. Looks great behind the ball. Certainly one I'd consider putting in the bag, but then when you consider the performance that I got with the weight forward, so this is the setting that better players, faster swingers are going to enjoy a little bit more. It's going to offer the lowest amount of spin. Also a little bit low on forgiveness, but looking at the distance numbers and the spin numbers, certainly more optimised for me. So spin was averaging, well, looking here around about the 2,000 mark, so certainly lower than what I was used to. And that resulted in a gain in distance for me, averaging over 257 in terms of carry. Total, I got one out there at 281 total, which was certainly above average, but you know, looking around about 275 mark for total distance. So that setting certainly worked for me, and obviously with it in that forward position, also got a little bit more fade bias. So that certainly helped to negate my bad shot, which tends to turn over to the left a little bit. So really enjoyed that performance. So let's see how that compares with the F6 driver. with the weight in the front. Now this has the flip zone technology. You can see here I've got the heaviest weight in the front of the head, which is the lowest spinning setting. And looking at the numbers, similar, actually it's fitted right in between the two settings on the F6 Plus driver. Spin was averaging around the 2.3, low 2.3s. Distance 251 carried, 268 total. So again, very impressive. I think if you're looking for a little bit more launch assistance, you can put that weight in the back and get a little bit more that way. Overall, I really enjoyed hitting both of these drivers. I think the F6 driver, looking down at address, is a little bit more elongated from front to back. That's going to suit the eye of game improvers who are looking for a bit more confidence, inspiring look at address. The F6 Plus driver, really enjoy the shape of this driver. It's a little bit more compact down by the ball. Really like this white crown. Feels really light to swing, really effortless to swing, and feels incredibly stable. Really do recommend you give it a try, and don't forget there's 3 colours depending on your preference. You've got the traditional black, or the white, or the blue. So very varied offering from Cobra, well worth you giving it a try.